Hi everybody, welcome back to my next video. Um, I'm pretty sure that, like I mentioned in that last video at the beginning, uh, there, out of these three videos, counting that one, this one, and the next one I'm going to do, I'm pretty sure that one of these videos, I think it might be this one, will probably get, certain people's attention. Granted, and I've said this before, I don't typically do political rants. Unless it's, something in relation to politics that I just really, have a bone to pick with. Like I shot one about, the, music video thing, law. I know I've talked about like a few other things as well. But, one thing, and this is something that's just really, like, lately has just begun to just really irritate the dog shit out of me. It has. It just has just completely just put me off, and stuff. What it is I'm getting sick of the political jockeying that I've seen on both Facebook and YouTube, where I'm about to stay logged out of both Facebook and YouTube because of all the political horseshit that I've seen. And let me, with that said, let me elaborate further on what I just said. For example, I know that President Obama had some issues with getting the economy fixed over the last 4 years. And this I can't deny, and neither can Obama. Let's be honest here. I also have to say that even though the economy has bottomed out over the last 4 years, it's also started to slowly, finally, go the other way. And it's starting to come back together. There's a saying, and for certain Republican people that I know, there's a saying, it's Rome wasn't built in a day. It got torn down in a day, but, it wasn't built in a day. I may have my Democrat leanings, but I am a realist first. The reality of the matter is here, and I've said this to, Richard Mad Bad Voodoo. I've also said it to my husband Tony and a few other people. That, back in 2008, the economy was really starting to fall apart from the strain of two wars in two different places, one in Afghanistan and one in Iraq. Both wars, let's be honest, were started by President Obama's predecessor, one President George W. Bush. Like I've also said before, I said prior to Obama getting elected that whoever took over for G.W. Bush was going to have a huge mess to clean up, and it probably wouldn't get done in 4 years either. I said that it would probably drag out for the next 8 to 12 years, and it would probably be 3 to 4 presidents after G.W. Bush left office to get this country's economy back online and running like it did when President Bill Clinton was in office. And let's be completely honest here. Granted, Clinton was a good president, even though he had a problem with that rule they teach you back in the first grade that involves keeping one's hands and other body parts to oneself. But we also didn't have a deficit. We also didn't have two wars in two different foreign countries, and we also didn't have all the craziness that went on back in September 2011. When did all of these aforenamed issues happen? Really? Did these issues happen that I just named during President Obama's presidency, or did it happen when somebody else was in office? G.W. Bush. You tell me. Now, one thing is 100% sure, and regardless of if you're a Democrat or a Republican, the question that I want you to stop and think about here, honestly, all Republican Democrat thing aside, think about it. Do you think John McCain might have done any better if he had won back in 2008? Or would it have been the same laissez-faire crap that Bush instituted from 2000 to 2008? I'm wondering if McCain had won, if things would have spiraled so out of control back in 2008. Now, to say that the Republicans are about to get taken that the Republicans are about to get taken out back and spanked in a major way by the Democrats are in order, or if we would still have a country to speak of right now. Let's be completely honest here. One thing that I think that everybody, no matter what your leanings are, Republican, Democrat, or other, can agree on is that the American economy is broken by rich bankers, speculators, and other financial people making bad decisions, then the two wars putting an extra strain on the government that it's now causing everything to collapse in on itself. The wars weren't started by Obama. Let's be honest here. It was started by Bush. I have to give President Obama props for at least attempting to get this stuff started down the right road to being 100% well again as a country. But let's also be honest here as well, folks. One thing that needs to happen is that we need to stop bailing out foreign countries like Afghanistan and Iraq. Look what happened with the Vietnam War. We had our asses handed to us, the United States that is, by some folks who didn't want us in their country in the first place, and the French told us to not really get involved in Vietnam. Now, I think us going after Osama bin Laden is fine. Now, that I can totally understand. But us going in and picking a fight with the dictator Saddam Hussein in Iraq just because Saddam Hussein threatened the life of somebody's daddy, G.H.W. Bush, back in the day is a bit much. Let's state facts here. G.W. Bush, was all in a snit over what had been said about his daddy. Let's be honest here about that. I don't know a person ever born who wouldn't be upset if their dad's life was threatened to not be upset about it and want to pick a fight with the person who said it, but causing one country to overextend itself by starting a fight with another country is a bit uncalled for there, especially when it involves the other country's leader running off at the mouth and over the first country's leader in an angry way. I mean, let's face it. I mean, it's the same thing with like Nicki Minaj and Mariah Carey. It's the same thing, in my opinion. I mean, it's like two big divas having a problem. Let's be honest here. At least President Obama wasn't ever called something to the effect of a stupid punta gringo by another nation's leader like G.W. Bush was called by President Chavez, or be like Mitt Romney and be called Mitt the Twit by British folks over the Olympics this year. Granted, Obama hasn't exactly been batting 1,000 here, but it's better than to be out in public and making a complete ass of himself, as Romney did with the Olympics over the summer in England. Granted, at the first presidential debate earlier this month, Romney basically handed Obama his ass on a plate, but some of the photos afterwards and some of the commentaries were on the mean-spirited side of Obama. I have not decided which way I'm going to vote next month in November this year, 2012. And whenever I decide who I'm going to vote for next month, I'm going to keep that decision between me, the paper that I'm voting on, and the machine that I feed it to down the street, the polling place where I vote at normally here in Kentucky. After all the ballots here in Kentucky have all been tallied, including my own, which, thank goodness, Kentucky is one of the fastest ballot counting states in the nation. I wish, and as a side note, I love how Kentucky handles the voting. I wish places like Florida and Ohio would take their cues from Kentucky. It would solve 99.999% of the problem right there. Other than, just training people. Because I think sometimes it's an ID10T problem, or user error, but, if Ohio and Florida would take their cues from Kentucky, that would probably solve half of the, ballot issues right there. Now, after I vote and all the votes have been tallied here in Kentucky, I might shoot a video and I might say something about it at that time, or I might just keep my mouth shut until a few weeks have passed, and closer to Thanksgiving, and things have settled back down afterwards. I know one thing, though, and I should say this now. I think that anybody who is not registered to vote but really wants to voice their opinions about the president and who they think they should be in office for the next 4 years need to go down to their local office, voter registration office, and get registered, and vote instead of bitching about it to others. I am a firm believer in people going in and voting, because if you want to make your voice heard, then go vote. Don't whine about it to me, or bitch about it, whatever you want to call it. As a woman, and I've learned about this happening when I was in the university, I think that if Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Susan B. Anthony were still alive today and knew of women that could legally be allowed to vote and weren't registered voters, I think both Stanton and Anthony would throw a fit. Seriously, folks, Elizabeth Cady Stanton was out once, rallying for women's right to vote back in the day, when one of her children, it was a son, fell off the roof of their house and broke every bone in his body. Oddly enough, the son lived, but when somebody told Elizabeth Stanton about what had happened to her son, Stanton said, "What was he doing on the roof of the house in the first place?" Apparently, the son was up there on the roof for no particular reason. His dumb butt was up there on the roof. Granted, Stanton kept on pushing back then for the right for women to go vote, and I am basically of the opinion that if all women were physically able and were legally, quote-unquote, allowed to vote, then they should get themselves registered and go vote. Seriously, I do have very strong opinions about women voting. Seriously, all these women, in, England and, Britain and everything, rallied to vote. Like an example, and this is a fictionalized version of the British suffrage movement, is Mary Poppins. Even the Disney movie touched on it lightly. The book Mary Poppins is a lot more like, well, the way to put it is colorful. But I know that I'm pretty sure Mad Bad Voodoo is going to have a conniption when he watches this video. Richard, really? There are worse things, I could probably find another, smart ass photo of Romney, in case some of you don't know what I'm talking about. Recently I found on Facebook a thing that it had a picture of Romney wearing a blue and white starred bra, red pantyhose, and women's underwear. And it had Obama in the corner saying "not bad," and it looked like Romney was posing, for a risque thing. I saw that and I died laughing. I was like, oh my god. It was Richard, no offense, has been posting photos of Obama looking like he got beat up by somebody. That's the kind of stuff I was talking about earlier. Yeah, Richard's entitled to his opinions and I'm entitled to mine, but it's you get to the point where you're I know that the last 4 years hasn't been exactly easy for anybody. I'd be lying if I said different. But, I'm of the opinion that, we need to stop squabbling about it and fix it already. And that's what I'm mainly getting at, is I just wish people would just, I wish Romney would go on and say, for example, what it is that he's going to do exactly, instead of, him hauling around and being like, well, we're going to try this and we're going to try that. No, like they say, the devil's in the details, and I would like to know what the devil it is. It's seriously, like they always say, it always gets worse before it gets better. I hope it gets better and soon. It's just because there's way too much stupid going on. And that's the main thing that I'm getting at. With the vote. It's I think that, whoever is destined to run the country for the next 4 years is going to win. The only thing I hope for, and I want to say this and hush up about it, is I just hope that nothing goes on like what happened in 2000 when Al Gore and George W. Bush had that lawsuit down in Florida, and after everything was said and done, like they admitted, like when Obama was in office, that George W. Bush shouldn't have had those first 4 years. 2000 to 2004. Al Gore should have been in office. And I'm like thinking, you guys just figured that out? What took you so long? It's like, like I've said to Richard, when Obama got in and he was bitching at me over it, I said, well, the majority has spoken. I said, no offense, but they have spoken. I said, that's the way I see it. When the majority has spoken, shut up and deal with it. I mean, like, for example, I wasn't too thrilled about Paul Rand winning, or whatever his name is that represents Kentucky now. I didn't vote for him. But, I'm like, well, it is what it is. I cast my vote against him. He still won. Well, I can always vote against him next time. That's the way I see it. I mean, whoever wins, will win because that's what the majority wants. And that's the way I see it. And that's why I'm not going to say who I'm voting for in, November, in next month. But anyway, I thank you guys for watching. And hang on, I got, something else to talk about in the next video, alright? Hang on.